The old warship moved slowly through the darkness of space. Its metal skin was covered with scars from many years of fighting and damage. Inside the bridge, Captain Jake Morrison stood watching the stars through the front window. The lights were dim because they needed to save power. Everything on the ship was old and breaking down, but they kept going. Jake was tired. Not just from lack of sleep, but tired deep in his bones. He had been captain of the USS Valiant for 20 years now. Before him, his father had been captain. And before that, his grandfather. 3 generations of the Morrison family had commanded this ship, always running, always hiding. 200 years ago, the aliens came. They called themselves the Krathan Dominion. They were big creatures that looked like insects with hard shells and too many legs. They came to Earth with thousands of ships, and they did not want to talk. They wanted to destroy everything. The war lasted only 3 months. Earth burned. Every human colony in space was attacked and destroyed. Billions of people died. The Valiant was one of the few ships that escaped. Back then, it had 3,000 crew members. Now, only 400 people lived on the ship. Most of them had been born here, in space, never seeing a real planet. They grew up hearing stories about Earth, about green grass and blue oceans and fresh air. But those were just stories now. Earth was gone. Lieutenant Amy Carter sat at her station, watching the sensor screens. She was 25 years old and had spent her whole life on this ship. Her parents died when she was young, killed during a fight with a Krathan patrol. Jake had raised her like she was his own daughter. She was good at her job, always watching, always careful. "Captain," Amy said suddenly. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the worry in it. "I'm seeing something on the sensors. Multiple contacts. They're moving in formation." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "How many?" 12 small ships and 4 big ones, Amy replied, her fingers moving fast across her controls. "They're Krathan. And they're coming right at us." The bridge went quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing. They all knew what this meant. For 200 years, the Valiant had survived by staying hidden. They moved through empty parts of space where no one ever went. They turned off most of their systems to avoid being detected. They were like a ghost, invisible and silent. But now they had been found. Commander Ben Hayes walked up to stand next to Jake. Ben was old, maybe the oldest person on the ship. His hair was white and his face had many lines. He had been a young officer when Earth fell. Now he was the second in command. He had seen everything, survived everything. "What are your orders, Captain?" Ben asked quietly. Jake looked at the tactical display. Red dots showed where the enemy ships were. They were getting closer fast. The Valiant's engines were old and damaged. They could not run fast enough to escape. Their weapons had not been fired in many years. They were completely outnumbered. For 200 years, they had run from fights. They had hidden and survived. But now there was nowhere left to run. "Sound the alarm," Jake said. "All crew to battle stations. If we're going to die today, we'll take some of them with us." Loud alarms began ringing through the whole ship. People started running to their positions. In the weapons room, Chief Lisa Grant began turning on the guns. They were old guns, built with technology from 200 years ago. She did not know if they would even work. But she would try down in the engine room. Chief Kyle Barnes looked at his controls with concern. The reactor was old and weak. It could barely give them enough power to move, let alone fight. But Kyle was a genius with machines. He had kept this ship running for years when it should have died. He would do whatever he could. Jake sat down in the captain's chair. He pressed a button that opened communication channels to the whole ship. Every person on board could hear him now. "This is the captain speaking," Jake said. His voice was strong and clear. "The Krathan have found us. They're coming with 16 ships. We have 1. Those are bad odds. But remember who we are. We are the last survivors of humanity. We carry the memory of Earth, of every person who died, of every child who never got to grow up. The Krathan think they destroyed us. They think we're weak. Let's show them they're wrong." He paused, then continued. "I won't lie to you. We might not survive this. But if we're going to die, we'll die fighting. We'll make them remember this day. We'll make them remember that humans don't give up. Battle stations, everyone. And good luck. Jake closed the channel. He looked at Amy. Put the enemy commander on screen. I want to talk to him. Amy's fingers danced across her controls. Channel open, Captain. The main screen flickered and changed. Now it showed the face of a Krathan warlord. His name was Threx. He had large eyes like an insect, and sharp mandibles that clicked when he talked. His skin was dark and shiny like armor. He looked at Jake with what seemed like amusement. Human, Threx said. His voice was translated into English by a computer. You have survived longer than I expected. That is impressive. But your time is over now. Turn off your weapons. Accept your death with honor. Jake stared back at the alien. He felt anger burning in his chest. This creature and his kind had killed everything Jake loved. They had destroyed Earth, they had murdered billions of innocent people, and now he acted like it was nothing. You know what you did wrong? Jake asked. His voice was cold. You thought you won because you destroyed our planets. You thought you beat us because you killed so many of us. But you never understood what makes humans dangerous. Threx's mandibles clicked in annoyance. What is that, human? Your old weapons? Your broken ship? Our memory, Jake said. We remember everything. Every person you killed? Every home you burned. Every child you murdered. We've had 200 years to think about it. 200 years to plan. And now you're going to learn something important. He nodded to Ben, who stood ready at the weapons station. You see, we haven't just been running all these years. We've been learning. Every piece of your technology we found, we studied it. We took it apart. We made it better. And we've been waiting for this moment. Suddenly, panels opened all along the Valiant's hull. Weapons emerged, but these were not the old guns the Krathan expected. These were new weapons, built using Krathan technology, but improved by human engineers. They had spent 200 years preparing for this fight. Fire, Jake said calmly. The Valiant's weapons lit up space like a small sun. Beams of pure energy shot across the distance between the ships. The first Krathan cruiser did not even have time to raise its shields. The energy beams cut through its hull like paper. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. Threx's face on the screen showed shock. His mandibles opened wide. Impossible! He screamed. All ships attack. Destroy them! The battle had begun. The Krathan ships opened fire. Missiles and energy beams filled the space between the two forces. Amy watched her screen carefully, her hands moving fast to track every incoming threat. She had trained for this her whole life, but this was the first real battle she had ever been in. Incoming missiles, 60 of them, Amy called out. Impact in 20 seconds. Defense systems ready, Ben said. His voice was steady like he did this every day. Firing countermeasures. Small guns all over the Valiant's hull came to life. They shot out streams of bullets and energy that hit the incoming missiles. Explosions lit up the darkness as missile after missile was destroyed before it could reach the ship. But some got through. The Valiant shook as 3 missiles hit the shields. Kyle's voice came over the speaker from the engine room. Shields holding at 60%. But I can't take many more hits like that. Lisa worked at the weapons station, targeting the enemy ships one by one. The new weapons were amazing. They were so much better than the old guns. Energy beams shot out and cut through Krathan shields like they were nothing. Another enemy cruiser exploded, then another. 3 ships down, Lisa reported. Targeting the next one. Jake watched the battle with focused eyes. The Krathan had more ships, but the Valiant was faster and hit harder. The old warship moved through space like it was dancing, dodging enemy fire while its own weapons found their targets again and again. Threx could not believe what he was seeing. His fleet was being destroyed by a single human ship. It should not be possible. Human technology was old and weak. Everyone knew that. But this ship was different. It moved too fast. Its weapons were too powerful. Its shields were too strong. All ships, focus fire on that vessel, Threx ordered. I want every gun we have pointed at them. The remaining Krathen ships changed their formation. They surrounded the Valiant and all fired at once. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles hit the human warship from every direction. The ship shook hard. Lights flickered on the bridge. Sparks flew from damaged systems. Shields at 30%, Kyle called out. We can't take another hit like that. Jake knew they needed to change tactics. If they stayed here, the Krathen would overwhelm them with numbers. They needed to split up the enemy fleet, make them easier to fight one at a time. Amy, find me the weakest ship in their formation, Jake said. Amy's fingers flew across her controls. The cruiser on the left side. Its shields are damaged from our last attack. Lisa, target that ship with everything we have. Kyle, I need full power to the engines. We're going to ram right through their formation. Ben looked at Jake with surprise. That's risky, Captain. I know, Jake said. But we don't have a choice. If we stay here, they'll surround us. We need to break through. The Valiant's engines roared to life with power they had not shown in years. The ship shot forward like a bullet, heading straight at the damaged Krathen cruiser. Lisa fired every weapon at once. Energy beams and missiles hit the enemy ship one after another. The Krathen cruiser tried to move out of the way, but it was too slow. Its shields collapsed. Then its armor broke apart. The ship split in two just as the Valiant flew through the gap. Now the human warship was on the other side of the Krathen formation. Hard turn to port, Jake ordered. Target their rear ships. The Valiant spun around and opened fire again. The Krathen ships were confused. They had been arranged to shoot at the Valiant from the front. Now it was behind them. It took them valuable seconds to turn around, and in those seconds, the Valiant destroyed 2 more ships, Threx roared in anger. How is this possible? They're just humans. They should be dead. His second officer, a younger Krathen named Krell, looked at the tactical screen with fear. Warlord, we've lost 7 ships. Maybe we should retreat and call for help. No, Threx shouted. I will not run from humans. I will not be the commander who was defeated by an extinct race. All ships, prepare for close combat. We'll board their ship and kill them all by hand. But the Valiant was not done yet. Amy had been watching the enemy carefully, studying their movements and patterns. She noticed something important. The Krathen ships always moved in specific ways. They followed old battle tactics that had worked against other enemies. But humans fought differently. Captain, I have an idea, Amy said. The Krathen ships have weak armor on their undersides. If we can get below them, we can do serious damage. Jake smiled. Do it. The Valiant dove down, moving below the plane where the space battle was happening. The Krathen ships tried to follow, but they were not built to move like that. They were designed for straight-line battles, not for three-dimensional fighting. From below, the Valiant fired up at the enemy ships. The shots hit their weak points perfectly. One ship lost its engines and went spinning out of control. Another ship had its reactor hit and exploded in a massive fireball. Lisa was breathing hard, but she kept firing. The weapons were getting hot from being used so much. She had to be careful not to overheat them. But every shot counted. Every destroyed enemy ship meant a better chance of survival. Kyle was working miracles in the engine room. The old reactor was running way beyond its normal limits. Warning lights were flashing everywhere. But he kept pushing it harder. The ship needed speed and power, and he would give it to them no matter what. Another Krathen ship exploded. Then another. The space around them was filled with debris and escape pods. Enemy crews were abandoning their ships, trying to save their lives. Jake looked at the tactical display. They had started with 16 enemy ships. Now only 5 were left. One was Threx's flagship, a massive ship twice the size of the Valiant. The other 4 were smaller cruisers, but still dangerous. They're trying to run, Amy said. 3 of the cruisers are turning away. They're going to jump to hyperspace. We can't let them escape, Ben said. If they report what happened here, the Dominion will send bigger fleets. Jake nodded. Lisa, target those cruisers. Take them down before they can jump. Lisa launched missiles at the fleeing ships. The missiles were smart, able to follow their targets and adjust their course. The first cruiser tried to dodge, but the missile stayed with it. When the missile hit, it went right through the ship's weak shields and exploded inside the engine room. The cruiser was torn apart. The second cruiser almost made it to the jump point. Its engines were glowing bright as it prepared to enter hyperspace. But Amy had learned a lot about Krathen technology over the years. She knew exactly when their ships were most vulnerable. Firing electromagnetic pulse now, Amy said. A wave of energy hit the cruiser just as it was starting its jump. The pulse disrupted the ship's systems at the worst possible moment. The jump drive collapsed while it was active. Space itself seemed to tear open for a second, and then the ship was gone. Not destroyed, just gone, erased from reality. The third cruiser stopped trying to run. Its captain decided to turn and fight instead. The ship came at the Valiant with all weapons firing. It was brave, but it was also foolish. The Valiant was stronger, faster, and had better weapons. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. When it was over, the cruiser was a floating wreck with no life signs. Now only 2 ships remained. Threx's flagship and 1 more large battleship. Jake looked at them on the screen. These were the biggest threats, the most powerful ships in the enemy fleet. This was going to be the real fight. Threx stared at what remained of his fleet. 11 ships destroyed, only his flagship and 1 battleship still fighting. He had come here expecting an easy victory, expecting to crush the last humans without any trouble. Instead, he was losing. Warlord, we should retreat, Krell said again. His voice shook with fear. This ship is too dangerous. We need more forces. Threx turned to face his officer. His mandibles clicked in anger. We retreat from nothing. I will not bring shame to the Dominion. We will destroy this human ship, even if we have to ram them and tear them apart with our bear claws. He turned back to the main screen and opened a channel to the remaining battleship. Captain Vex, prepare for a ramming attack. We're going to hit them from 2 sides at once. They can't dodge us both. On the Valiant's bridge, Amy saw the 2 Krathen ships changing course. They were coming straight at the human warship from different directions. Captain, they're going to try to ram us. Impact in 40 seconds. Ben looked at the tactical display. If we dodge one, the other will hit us. And if either of those ships hits us, we're done. They're too big. Jake thought fast. The Krathen were desperate now, willing to sacrifice their own ships to destroy the Valiant. It was a smart move. The human ship was faster and had better weapons, but it could not survive being crushed between 2 massive alien warships. How close do they need to be before they can't change course? Jake asked. Amy checked her calculations. At their current speed, they'll be committed to their path in 20 seconds. Good, Jake said. Kyle, I need everything you've got in the engines, more than everything. I don't care if the reactor explodes after this, just give me 1 big burst of speed. Kyle's voice came back over the speaker. Captain, if I do that, we might not have engines left for later. There won't be a later if we don't survive this, Jake said. Do it. Yes, sir. Charging now. Jake turned to Lisa. I need you to target both ships at the same time. I want boarding pods ready to launch. Lisa looked confused. Boarding pods? Sir, those ships are about to ram us. Trust me, Jake said. Just have them ready. The 2 Krathen ships got closer and closer, 30 seconds to impact. 20 seconds. The crew of the Valiant held their breath. This was it. Either the captain's plan would work, or they would all die in the next few moments. 15 seconds, Amy counted down. Engines at maximum, Kyle said. Ready when you are, Captain. 10 seconds. Jake watched the screen. The 2 enemy ships were huge. They filled the view. He could see every detail of their hulls, every weapon port, every piece of armor. He waited just a few more seconds. 5 seconds. They're committed to their course now. They can't turn. Now! Jake shouted, full power to engines. Turn hard starboard and dive. The Valiant suddenly moved like it had been shot from a cannon. The old warship twisted in space and shot forward, down and to the right. The two Krathen ships, unable to change course, flew past on either side. They missed the Valiant by only a few meters. Launch boarding pods. Jake ordered. Small pods shot out from the Valiant's hull. They used magnetic acceleration to fly incredibly fast across the tiny distance to the Krathen flagship. Within seconds, they had slammed into Threx's ship, cutting through the armor and embedding themselves deep inside. Threx felt his ship shake as the human boarding pods hit. Alarms started ringing all over the flagship. On his internal cameras, he could see human soldiers pouring into his corridors. They wore armor made from many different technologies, and they carried weapons that looked deadly. Repel boarders. Threx shouted, "All security teams, kill the humans." But the humans were not the scared civilians the Krathen had fought 200 years ago. These were soldiers who had been born in space, who had trained their entire lives for combat. They moved through the Krathen ship like they owned it. Sergeant Dan Cooper led the first team through the enemy ship's corridors. He was 30 years old and had never known peace. Every day of his life had been spent preparing for this moment. Behind him, 10 other soldiers moved in perfect formation. They knew what they were doing. A group of Krathen soldiers came around the corner, weapons raised, but Dan's team was faster. They opened fire first. Energy beams and bullets cut down the aliens before they could shoot back. Dan's team did not stop. They kept moving deeper into the ship. "Team 2, report," Dan said into his radio. "We've reached the engine room," came the reply from Lieutenant Paul Wright. "Setting charges now. This ship won't be going anywhere soon." "Good," Dan said. "Team 3, what's your status?" "Almost at the bridge," answered Corporal Nina Brooks. "Heavy resistance, but we're pushing through." Dan smiled inside his helmet. Everything was going according to plan. "All teams, remember the mission. We take this ship apart from the inside. Show no mercy, they gave us none." The human teams moved through the Krathen flagship like a disease, infecting every part of the ship. The Krathen defenders tried to stop them, but they were not used to fighting enemies this skilled. Most Krathen soldiers had only fought against weak opponents. They had never faced trained human warriors. In the engine room, Paul and his team placed explosive charges on all the critical systems. The reactor, the power conduits, the hyperdrive. When these charges went off, the ship would tear itself apart. On the bridge, Nina's team fought their way past the last defenders. They threw grenades through the door and then stormed in behind the explosions. The Krathen officers on the bridge did not stand a chance. Within minutes, the bridge was secure. "Captain Morrison, this is Brooks," Nina said into her radio. "We have the bridge. The ship is ours." On the Valiant's bridge, Jake heard the report and nodded with satisfaction. "Good work, Corporal. Dan, what's your status?" Don was moving through the ship's upper levels, heading for the throne room where the Krathen warlord would be. "Almost there, Captain. Just a few more corridors." Threx sat on his command throne, surrounded by his personal guards. These were his best warriors, the strongest fighters in his fleet. They would protect him to the death. He could hear the sounds of battle getting closer. The humans were coming for him. The doors to the throne room exploded inward. Human soldiers poured through the smoke and fire. Threx's guards charged forward to meet them. The throne room became a battlefield. Energy weapons lit up the space. Bodies fell on both sides, but slowly the humans pushed forward. They were outnumbered, but they were better trained and better armed. One by one, the Krathen guards fell. Soon, only Threx remained, standing alone in his throne room. Dan Cooper walked forward, his weapon raised. He looked at the Krathen warlord through his helmet's visor. This was the creature who had commanded the fleet that tried to kill them all. This was one of the aliens who had destroyed Earth. "My grandmother was on Earth when your kind came," Gon said. His voice was cold and hard. "She was just a kid. She watched your soldiers kill her parents. She was one of the lucky ones who escaped. She spent the rest of her life running and hiding. She died 10 years ago. Her last words to me were a promise I had to make." Threx raised his plasma blade, the traditional weapon of Krathen warlords. "And what was that promise, human?" "That I would make you pay," Don said. "For every death, For every murdered child. For every world you burned. She said I should show you the same mercy you showed us. Threx charged forward with a roar. He was huge and fast and deadly. His blade cut through the air where Dane had been standing. But Dan was already moving, already dodging. His armor servos gave him speed that matched the alien's natural strength. Dan fired his weapon 3 times. Each shot was perfectly placed, hitting weak points in Threx's armor. The warlord stumbled. His blade swung again, but slower this time. Don dropped his rifle and pulled out a combat knife. It was a simple weapon, made from scraps of metal, but it was sharp and deadly. He moved inside Threx's guard and drove the knife up through a gap in the alien's armor. Threx gasped, his mandibles spreading wide. He looked down at the blade in his chest, then up at the human who had put it there. "This is impossible," Threx whispered. "We destroyed you. You should be extinct." "You destroyed our worlds," Don said quietly. "You killed our people. But you never destroyed what makes us human. You never killed our will to survive. And you never understood that humans are most dangerous when we have nothing left to lose." He twisted the knife. Threx fell to his knees, then collapsed forward. The Krathan warlord was dead. "Captain, this is Cooper," Don said into his radio. "The warlord is dead. Repeat, Threx is dead." "Copy that," Jake replied. "All teams, pull back to the pods. We're setting the charges to blow. You have 5 minutes." The human soldiers ran back through the corridors they had fought through. Behind them, explosive charges began counting down. They reached their boarding pods and launched back toward the Valiant. The Krathan flagship began to shake. Explosions rippled through its hull. The reactor was overloading. The hyperdrive was collapsing. Within seconds, the entire ship tore itself apart in a massive explosion that lit up the battlefield like a small star. Only one enemy ship remained now. The battleship that had tried to ram the Valiant earlier. Its captain saw what had happened to the flagship and made a decision. He turned his ship around and ran. His engines glowed bright as he prepared to jump to hyperspace. Jake watched the last Krathan battleship turn to flee. Part of him wanted to chase it down and destroy it. No survivors. No witnesses. But another part of him, the strategic part, knew better. Sometimes it was useful to let an enemy escape. "Captain, should we pursue?" Ben asked. "We can catch them before they jump." Jake shook his head slowly. "No, let them go." The bridge crew looked at him with surprise. Amy turned in her chair. "Sir, if they escape, they'll tell the Dominion what happened here." "They'll send more ships." "I know," Jake said. "That's exactly what I want them to do." He stood up and walked to the main view screen. Outside, the battlefield was filled with debris. 16 Krathan ships had come here. 15 were now destroyed. Their wreckage floated in space, silent and dead. Only one escaped. "For 200 years we've been hiding," Jake said. "We've been running and hoping the Krathan would forget about us. But they never forgot. They kept hunting us. They wanted to make sure humanity was completely extinct. Well, now they know we're not extinct. Now they know we're still here and still fighting." Ben understood what Jake was thinking. You want them to spread fear. You want the Dominion to be afraid of us. "Exactly," Jake said. "That ship is going to go back and tell everyone what happened. They're going to say that one human ship destroyed 15 Krathan vessels. They're going to say that humans can't be beaten. And that fear is going to spread." Lisa had been listening while she worked on repairing the weapon systems. "But won't that make them send bigger fleets after us?" "Maybe," Jake admitted. "But it will also make them hesitate. It will make them second-guess themselves. And while they're busy being afraid, we'll be getting stronger." The escaped Krathan battleship jumped to hyperspace and disappeared. Jake turned back to his crew. "Amy, start scanning for any other enemy forces in the area. Kyle, I need a full damage report. Lisa, check all weapon systems. Ben, get medical teams to help anyone who's hurt. We won this fight, but we can't rest yet." The crew got to work. The Valiant had taken damage during the battle. Several hull plates were destroyed, some systems were offline, but overall, the ship had survived much better than anyone expected. Kyle's modifications had worked perfectly. The new shields had held when the old ones would have failed. In the medical bay, doctors were treating the wounded. Most injuries were minor. A few broken bones from the ship shaking during impacts, some burns from exploding consoles. Only 3 crew members had died during the battle, and that was fewer than anyone had feared. Don Cooper and his boarding teams were being checked over as well. They had all made it back alive, though some had injuries from the fighting inside the Krathen flagship. Don sat on a medical bed while a doctor bandaged a cut on his arm. "You did good work today," Jake said, entering the medical bay. Don looked up at his captain. "Thank you, sir." "But it wasn't just me? The whole team worked perfectly together?" "I know," Jake said. "I'm proud of all of you. You proved something important today. You proved that humans can fight back and win." "What happens now?" Dan asked. "Will we keep running?" Jake smiled. "No, we're done running. Now we fight." Over the next few hours, the crew of the Valiant worked to repair their ship and salvage what they could from the destroyed Krathen vessels. There was a lot of useful technology floating in the debris field: advanced weapons, shield generators, computer systems. All of it could be studied and used to make the Valiant even stronger. Kyle led teams into space to collect the most valuable pieces. They worked carefully, using small ships to tow large chunks of debris back to the Valiant. It would take weeks to sort through everything and figure out what was useful, but it would be worth it. Amy spent her time analyzing the data she had collected during the battle. Every shot fired, every movement made, every tactic used. She wanted to understand exactly how they had won so they could do it again. She also studied the Krathen communication signals. There was a lot of information there about enemy fleet movements and patrol routes. "Captain, you should see this," Amy said, pulling up data on the main screen. Jake walked over to look. Amy had intercepted messages from the escaped Krathen battleship. The ship was broadcasting on all frequencies, sending urgent warnings to every Krathen vessel in the sector. "They're calling this battle a massacre," Amy said. "They're warning all Krathen fleets to avoid this area. They're saying that the last human warship is too dangerous to fight." Ben read the messages and smiled. "They're terrified. Look at this part. They're comparing us to ancient demons from their mythology. They think we're some kind of unstoppable force." "Good," Jake said. "Let them think that. Fear is a powerful weapon." Days passed as the Valiant remained in the area, salvaging and repairing. During that time, no Krathen ships came near. The whole sector seemed to be avoiding them. Amy monitored all the communication channels and saw that the story of the battle was spreading fast through the Dominion's military network. Krathen commanders were arguing about what to do. Some wanted to send a massive fleet to destroy the Valiant once and for all. Others said it was too dangerous and suggested leaving the humans alone. A few even suggested negotiating with the Valiant, offering a truce. "They don't know what to do with us," Ben observed. "For 200 years, they've been the strongest force in the galaxy. No one challenged them. No one scared them. Now, one ship has shaken their whole empire." Jake listened to the intercepted messages with satisfaction. This was exactly what he wanted. Confusion, fear, hesitation, these were all weapons he could use, but he also knew that eventually the Dominion would make a decision. They would send ships to hunt the Valiant. Probably a lot of ships. Maybe more than the Valiant could handle alone. That night, Jake stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. He thought about Earth, about the home he had never seen but always remembered. He thought about all the people who had died when the Krathen came. Billions of humans, gone forever. Amy came to stand beside him. She did not say anything at first. They just looked at the stars together in silence. "Do you think we can really win?" Amy finally asked. "Against the whole Dominion?" Jake considered the question carefully. "Win? I don't know. The Dominion has thousands of ships and controls hundreds of worlds. We have one ship and 400 people. The odds are not good." "Then why fight?" Amy asked. "Because we have to," Jake said. "Because if we don't fight, then everything humanity was, everything we stood for, will be forgotten. The Krathen will erase us from history like we never existed. I can't let that happen." He turned to look at Amy. "But maybe we don't need to win the whole war. Maybe we just need to win enough battles. Maybe we just need to survive long enough to remind the galaxy that humans existed, that we mattered, that we fought back even when it seemed impossible. Amy nodded slowly. And maybe other people will hear about us and decide to fight too. Other species the Krathen have conquered. Exactly, Jake said. The Dominion rules through fear. If we can show that they can be beaten, maybe others will find the courage to resist. Maybe we can start a rebellion that's bigger than just us. They stood together in silence for a while longer. Outside the window, the wreckage of the destroyed Krathen fleet drifted slowly through space. It was a monument to the battle, a reminder of what had happened here. Get some rest, Jake finally said. Tomorrow we need to start planning our next move. We can't stay here forever. Amy nodded and left. Jake remained on the observation deck, thinking about the future. The Valiant had won one battle, but the war was far from over. The Krathen would come again, and next time they would be ready, but so would humanity. The last warship would be ready too. 3 weeks later, the Valiant left the battle site. Kyle had finished most of the major repairs. The ship was stronger now than it had been before the fight. They had installed better shields, more powerful weapons, and improved engines. Some of the Krathen technology was truly amazing once you understood how it worked. They set course for the outer rim, for the empty regions of space where they could hide and plan. But along the way, Amy picked up something interesting on the long-range sensors. "Captain, I'm detecting a signal," she said. "It's faint, but it's using old human encryption codes." Jake felt his heart beat faster. "Human codes, are you sure?" "Positive," Amy said. "Someone out there is using codes that only human ships would know. They're transmitting on emergency frequencies. Can you pinpoint the location?" Jake asked. Amy worked on her console, trying to filter out interference and lock onto the signal. "Got it. It's coming from a system about 3 days away." "No, Krathen presence detected in that area." Jake made a decision. "Set course for that system. Maximum speed." "Sir, it could be a trap," Ben warned. "The Krathen might have captured human codes and are using them to lure us in." "I know," Jake said. "But if there's even a chance that other humans are out there, we have to check. We can't leave them behind." The Valiant changed course and headed toward the mysterious signal. As they got closer, the signal got stronger and clearer. It was definitely human in origin. Someone was calling for help,